You know, when you hear the word ergonomics, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably a comfy office chair, right? Maybe one of those funky keyboards? Well, today, we're going to go way, way beyond that. We're pulling back the curtain on the real science of work, a field that's honestly less about furniture and more about the hidden architecture of human performance itself.
So let me ask you this. Think about your job for a second. I mean, really think about it. Beyond the tasks you can see, what are the invisible demands? You know, the mental gymnastics of solving a complex problem, the emotional energy it takes to handle a tough client, or that slow burn fatigue you feel from just holding the same posture all day. Those are the unseen lines in your job description, and today we're going to make them visible. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what this unseen job description really is. Then, we're going to decode the physical stresses on your body, both the obvious and the hidden. After that, we'll map out the mental and emotional workload that almost never gets measured. And finally, we'll look at how we can actually use all this science to build better, more human-centered ways of working.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the unseen job description. The first thing you've got to understand is that we are not talking about some corporate wellness fad here. No, this is a serious, rigorous science called Ergonomics and Human Factors, or HFE for short.
So what exactly is HFE? Well, it's the science of designing systems to fit people, instead of trying to force people to fit into a system. But listen, the key part of this definition is the second half, to optimize well-being and overall system performance. See, this isn't just about feeling good. It's about creating systems where people can truly perform at their absolute best, both safely and effectively. The two go hand in hand.
And what I find so fascinating is just how many different fields HFE pulls from. I mean, look at this. You've got anthropology giving us data on body sizes, physiology explaining muscle fatigue, psychology digging into how we think and make decisions, and then engineering to actually apply it all. This isn't just guesswork. It's a super robust science built on a ton of diverse expertise.
Okay, so let's build on that foundation. On to Section 2, decoding your physical stress. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of how work really impacts our bodies, starting with the two main ways we actually get hurt. So on one hand, you've got acute trauma. That's the big, sudden event, a slip, a trip, a fall. But what's way more common, especially in today's workplaces, is cumulative trauma. You can think of it like an injury by 1,000 tiny paper cuts. It's all that microscopic damage that builds up from doing the same, seemingly harmless motions over and over and over again until one day, a part of your body that was totally fine just fails.
So how do we even spot the risk for that cumulative damage? Well, HFE professionals are trained to look for these three big things: force, posture, and repetition. How much effort are you using? What position is your body in while you're doing it? And how many times are you doing it? It's the nasty combination of these three that creates that invisible physical toll.
And this brings us to one of the biggest, most misunderstood risks out there: static posture. You might think that standing still or sitting still is resting, but for your muscles, it's not. They're actually still contracting, and that contraction squeezes the blood vessels inside them. This chokes off oxygen and traps waste products, which is exactly why you can feel so incredibly sore and tired after just holding one position for too long. Now, if you think preventing this stuff is just a nice to have, I want you to look at this number: $32,000. That's the average indirect cost of a single workers' compensation claim. We're talking lost productivity, retraining people, all those hidden fees. Suddenly, investing in good design doesn't seem like a cost at all, does it? It seems like a crazy, smart investment. Okay, we've spent some time on the body, but what about the mind? Let's pivot to Section 3, mapping your mental workload. This is where we really step into the invisible world of cognitive and emotional costs.
The big idea here is something called cognitive load theory. And honestly, the easiest way to think about it is this. Your working memory, the part of your brain you're using right now, it's like a computer's RAM, or maybe like a really small workbench. It's incredibly powerful, but it can only hold a few items at a time. If you try to cram too much on there, things start falling off, and performance just plummets.
Now, that mental workload isn't just one thing. It's actually made of three parts. You have intrinsic load, that's just how hard the task is, and germinate load, that's the effort you put into really learning. But the one we need to zoom in on is extraneous load. This is all the mental energy you waste because of bad design, confusing instructions, or a clunky interface. It's the junk that's cluttering up your mental workbench. So, here's the absolute crux of it all. The whole goal of good cognitive ergonomics is to ruthlessly hunt down and eliminate that extraneous load. It's all about designing systems and processes that are so clear and so intuitive that they don't waste a single ounce of your precious mental bandwidth. That frees you up to focus on what actually matters, the work itself. And if you think mental fatigue is just something in your head, you need to see this. 92%. That's the accuracy that new tech, using just heart rate variation, has in objectively identifying when someone is mentally fatigued. The takeaway here is huge. Your cognitive strain has a real, measurable physiological signature. It is a physical state.
And then there's emotional labor. You know, the work it takes to manage your feelings as part of your job. The key distinction to make is between surface acting and deep acting. Surface acting is basically just faking it, slapping on a smile when you feel terrible inside. It is incredibly draining and a direct path to burnout. Deep acting, though, is different. That's the genuine effort to actually change how you feel on the inside. It still takes work, for sure, but it's a whole lot more sustainable.
All right, so we've laid out the physical, cognitive, and emotional demands. The big question is, so what? What do we do about it? Let's move to our final section, building human-centered work. How do we put all this incredible science into practice?
I absolutely love this quote because it just completely reframes the entire conversation. Ergonomics isn't just some safety checklist you have to tick off. At its core, it is fundamentally about inclusion. It's about designing jobs that work for the widest possible range of people, no matter their size, their strength, or their cognitive style.
And this way of thinking can totally transform something like hiring, the traditional approach, right? It looks at degrees, years of experience, but an ergonomic, competency-based approach asks a different question. What are the actual physical and cognitive abilities needed to do this job well? It focuses on what people can actually do. And the data is just crystal clear. This method is 5 times more predictive of who will actually succeed in the job. 5 times.
And the results really do speak for themselves. Strong ergonomic programs don't just cut down on injuries. They've been proven to boost productivity by 10 to 25%. I mean, it makes sense, right? When you remove all that physical and mental friction from work, people are freed up to be way more effective and engaged.
And that really brings us to the core philosophy behind all of this. The goal is not to eliminate hard work, not at all. The goal is to make sure that the effort we put in every day is productive, that it builds value, it builds skill, it builds well-being, instead of being destructive, slowly grinding down our bodies and our minds.
So I'm going to leave you with this question to think about. We've seen that all this invisible work, the cognitive load, the emotional labor, the physical strain, it's the foundation of pretty much everything we achieve. It's not a side effect of the work, it is the work. So the real question is, how are you and how is your organization actually designing for it